Hey, y'all, welcome to Epic Stage Journeys and Then Some. I'm Gavin. I'll be your host. And, we got a good one today. You're going to like this guy. I've worked with him, 10, 15 years? He was
Yep.
up in Chicago, I was in the DFW area. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the great Mr. Bob Bach right there. Bocko,
How's it going, buddy?
how you doing?
I'm doing well.
Good
Happy to
to
be
see
here
him.
today.
I know, man. It is, it's good to be seen sometimes. I got to get these things straightened out here real quick because I messed everything up. So let's go back to the beginning. So you got in this. Well, I think you told me you were playing in bands. What age? What age did you
The,
start playing in bands?
the beginning, and I sent you a picture. That's why I asked if you got it. I was wearing a green shirt, green pants. That was in sixth grade, my first talent show.
You know what? I do have that. What did I do with it? That one right there.
And I never saw that picture until I joined Facebook in 2010 for a 20-year, 30-year reunion of the Fabulous Brill Creams. And people started posting pictures from back then. And I had never seen any of those photos ever.
Would
So
it
it
be
was
that
pretty.
one? Would it
it
be
was
that one
pretty.
right there?
That's the one.
There's the rock
That
star
was,
right
yep.
there.
There you go. Sixth grade, baby.
Nice
And
green.
the
Nice
first
green there.
first day I ever saw that picture, the tear that I felt that day came back. It was pretty crazy. I was like, because I didn't see that picture till 2010, and that was in the
Wow.
60s at some point.
Wow.
Yeah,
I think you're just a little bit older than I am. I don't think by much, but
66 right now.
okay, you got me by a few years. Not too many, but I'm not saying a word.
It's all good.
Oh
Medicare's
my
my
God.
new friend, buddy.
Oh my God. So you played the Brill Creams, right?
Yes, sir. I did
And
that. That band started, we all went to the same high school, and there was a guy, Gene Rogers, who had sustained a injury, became a quadriplegic.
Mhm.
And one of the guys that was in the high school put together a musical from Bach to Rock, it was called. And the 50s section was the Fabulous Brill Creams. And that's where the band actually came out of, was this musical that was made to raise money for Gene Rogers.
Oh, okay.
Um, he just recently passed, but he in without hesitation would do anything. Quadriplegic, he dropped out of a plane parachuting. He
Oh, he
he
was one of those guys. He was an adrenaline freak, is what he was.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Which is what put him where in the situation probably that caused the injury. But
Oh boy.
so they did this Bach to Rock play to raise money, and out of that came the Fabulous Brill Creams, and I joined that in 1973 and played with that band through '79. It was a
Now,
it was a
is
50s greaser band.
is that you right there?
That certainly is.
Look at that. Dude, that's a whole change from to where you are now. I mean, you were just get y'all greased up and rocking and everything.
Yeah, like I said, it was a 50s throwback band. So we did all 50s, 60s tunes. Band was very popular. I never had to work through high school. Played
I
out. I
didn't
was
know
playing
that.
in bars when I was 15.
Wow. I was just hanging out in bars when I was 15, so
Those those were some good times.
Oh, I
I could
bet.
probably do a whole book of stories on just the things that went on with that band.
That's how I got this kind of started. This was the fact that everybody kept telling me, "Oh, you should write a book. You should write a book." And I'm not like Pete from Roadies and Rockstars. He wrote a book, and I've yet to read it. But it just didn't seem very intriguing to me. And I was talking to my cousin one day, and he goes, just do a podcast. He goes, it's easier in a book. And I thought, well, yeah, I could do that. And then I just started inviting friends, and I said, you guys, let's just come on and just talk. We're just gonna shoot the shit, and we're gonna ball bust a little bit and just have a good time with it. And so far, it's worked out. It's worked out pretty good. So. But I had to bring you on because I know you've got the stories. I got the pictures, so you got to have this. You got to tell the stories. But now, what got you out on the road? When did you start touring?
So I started touring. Like I said, I was doing I had the band, the Fabulous Brokerames. They broke up. We did a top 40 classic rock band called Foul Play. And I signed on for all the loans, for all the lighting, the sound. And then the band broke up and they said, well, dude, take care of it. So I started a sound company. I started
Okay.
renting out. And back
Yep.
then, the drinking age was 18. So I
Hmm.
was
Yep.
working in bars 5, 6 nights a week with
Oh yeah.
cover bands.
Yeah.
And
When I grew up in Louisiana, drinking age was 18 then too. So it
yeah,
was, and man, I'll tell you what, when I turned 18, I was still in high school, just getting ready to finish, and I was having a good time.
I
And
get it.
then I went to college, and ooh, boy, that really went south after that.
I,
My
I,
mom,
I missed that experience.
I missed it too, actually. I went to college and I didn't graduate. I just got wrapped up in, work. I was working a radio station. I was tending bar at night just to make money and whatever. And so I didn't, my mom always told me, I gave her that I had that fateful conversation with him one night, hey, I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna take this time off. I'm gonna take a semester off and just relax and kind of rebuild myself again. And yeah, no, you take the semester off, you're done. That's just a kiss of death, is what that is. So
Yeah, I did about a year and a half of community college, and then music was better.
yeah, it was just well, I was going to school for the wrong reasons. I didn't want to, I just wanted to be do some kind of a simple thing. I wanted to be a DJ, and radio is what I wanted to do. And that kind of didn't come out. I mean, I was on the radio station in college and worked for them, but then when I got out, I just kind of went a different direction. I became a club DJ is what I did when I got
Hey,
out. But you know
oh,
what?
huge, huge now. I don't know if it was that big back then. Now
Well,
some of these guys, 20,000 people show up for these DJs.
no, yeah. See, no, we weren't at that level then.
I
None of that
get
was even
it.
happening back then. It was, you know, I think I was one of the DJs in the DFW area that was the first one to broadcast live on the radio. I think I was. And I was at this club called Cadillac Jacks, and I was the DJ there. And a radio station came to us, and they said, "Hey, we want to tap into your system, and then on Friday nights we're going to go live, and we're going to play all this on the radio." And I thought, oh, okay. And so they came and wired it up, and next thing you know, every Friday night we went live, and we had a good time. But the cool thing about being a club jock was that all the girls wanted to go to the DJ booth. They just wanted to hang out in the DJ booth.
Yep.
And yeah, they did. And
Sex, drugs, and rock and roll, baby.
that's it. That's all it was back then. And I enjoyed the hell out of it too. But when you so
So
when
my
you
my first touring gig, one of my buddies uh, worked with the Daz band, and he called me up. He goes, "Hey, dude, you want to go on tour?" I said, "Okay, sure, why not?" Well, what gigs available? He goes, "Keyboard tech." I'm like, "I don't know anything about setting up keyboards." He goes, "Here's all the manuals." I said, "All right, let's go." And that's how I started with the Daz band, being the keyboard tech. And then I ended up moving into being the monitor engineer. And at one point, I became the front of house engineer because I had spent 10 years mixing sound in clubs every night. So I was pretty good at it. And that's how my touring started. And then we got left in Kansas City. They go, up, we don't have any more money. Tour's over, go home. So we all had to find our own way home. They still
oh
owed us money.
gosh.
I was pretty mad at the time. But part of that whole experience with the Daz band, my mother, I said, hey, they're going to start paying me by check. And back then, direct deposit wasn't a thing.
I didn't even
So
say.
I said, hey, can I have them send my checks to you and you can deposit them for me? She goes, yeah, okay, I can do that. All the while, all I ever hear is, when are you going to get a real job? When are you going to get a real job?
Yep.
So the first check came to my mom. She opened up the envelope, looked at the check, calls me up, and she goes, well, I guess this is a real job. You're making 3 times what your father makes.
Yeah. I mean, it's, if you were in good, you could make money at it. I, well, when I was doing, when I first started out, the reason why I got into the club DJ thing, when I was in college, I was working at a bar as a, I think I was working the door or something. And I was just trying to make some money. And then one night the DJ didn't show up to the club. So the owner came to me and he goes, hey, and I said, yeah. He goes, you DJ at the radio station, don't you? And I said, yeah. And he goes, well, our DJ didn't show up. He goes, so get up in the booth. You're going to have to do this. And I'm like going, wait, no, what are we doing here? And I didn't know a thing about mixing. I didn't know anything. And so I just blindsided the whole thing and got through it. And I thought, oh, this is kind of cool. So I just kind of worked on it. And then when I moved out of Louisiana and came to Texas, I just kept, looking around and I found some places and I got my way into a couple of clubs and next thing I know, it just kind of blew up and it was fun. But, the cool thing about it was if you left one club, somebody knew about it and they'd find you and take you to another club. So I bounced around a lot doing that. And then it was like, nah, I got to do something else. And then they made me a manager and that's when it all went to hell. So,
Yep.
but yep.
Don't they care?
No, but
So I was touring. I did that first tour with the Daz band, and we did shows with the Gap Band, Midnight Star, SOS,
yep,
all the R&B stuff
no
at the time.
wrong.
And we did a lot of those Bud Fests, which were just huge.
Oh yeah, I did the one in Dallas for 2 years.
Drunk party. I was probably at that one.
You probably were. Wouldn't surprise me if you weren't, because I remember one year it was the who was it? It was the Gap band showed up, and they were the ones they showed up without any equipment because they fired their trucking company, and then the trucking company goes, well, you can when you pay what you owe us, they said we'll give you your stuff back, and they drove off and took all their stuff. So they showed up in Dallas and had nothing, and I got stuck because I was just a PA back then. I was just doing these shows, but
Yeah.
yeah, I Midnight Star interviewed them on the radio in college one time. That was a trip, and
Go parking, baby.
oh yeah, and it was crazy. They were fun, but yeah, Budweiser Superfest was it was pretty intense.
Yes,
That
it
was
was.
that was the worst ass chewing I ever got was on a show was that Budweiser Superfest, and I got it from Patti LaBelle
Well,
of all.
she's a notorious not fun person, and I'll tell you, when you talk to Pete Walker, ask him about. He's got some stories.
I all I did was I was bouncing to the green rooms and checking everybody out, and make sure everything was what it needed to be. And I was coming out of her green room as she's coming in, and we passed each other, and I just kind of nodded and just went on by. And then I hear this young man. And I stopped and I turned around and I said, yes, ma'am. And she goes, come here for a minute. And so I walked over there and I said, what can I do for you? And she goes, this isn't going to work. And I said, ma'am, what's not going to work? She says, my green room is not painted the correct color. And I'm going, and I'm thinking, what the hell color do we need it to be? And so she was just going on about it. She was pissed. And she said, I will not go on stage until this gets painted the correct way. And I told her, ma'am, I will go ask the manager. I'll talk to the promoter. I'll talk to whoever. And in the meantime, as she's wearing my ass out, her manager shows up. And so he gets in between her and I. And he's going, Patty, what's the problem? And she said, well, I'm telling him he's supposed to get us paid. And in the meantime, he's back behind. He's waving me off behind his back. He's like, get the hell out of here. Get the hell out of here. and I just took it and ran. I was gone, and I thought, is it always going to be like this? Because Superfest it was nuts,
Yep.
especially with the Gap band showing up with no gear. And then they said, well, go around and ask all the other bands if they'll loan them some equipment. That didn't go over well at all. I ain't never been called cracker, white boy, honky. I don't know what all that was called, but I didn't care. I was just like going, I'm just trying to help these guys out. But it was fun. Though. It was a good time.
Yeah, the Gap Band, they were a good band.
They were, oh my God. Do you know that we had to carry them to the stage because, the stage rotated? Remember that stage?
Yep.
How it rotated? Well, we carried them up to the stage. They were, they were living it. And man, we got them up on stage and stood them up there and strapped the equipment on them. And I just told everybody to stay there and just don't let anybody fall. Don't let anybody fall off the riser. And so the guy gave us a cue that they were going to spin the stage, and everybody backed off and they spun the stage around. Man, those guys ripped the roof off that place. I mean, they just tore it up. It
Yep.
was unbelievable. And as soon as they spun them back around, they all collapsed where they were, and we drug them back to the green room.
That's pretty funny.
Man, it was nuts. I thought they're never going to make it, and my God, they shifted into another gear and they went with it.
I remember one of the first tours I did with the Daz band. We provided the monitor rig, and we put it in the truck in Cleveland. And when we got to Orlando, we were doing a festival that had Billy Ocean and the Daz band and probably Midnight Star. And when we took the gear out of the truck, all the amp racks, all the amps had fallen off. The faceplates were still mounted to the rails, but the amps were in the bottom of the rack.
Oh no.
First time ever, first real gig. It was a disaster.
That was a hell of a wake up call, I guess.
Dude. Yeah. Because we just put the amps in regular racks. They weren't in a rack in a case. Yeah, and they weren't supported from the back. It was a disaster. I think I lost most of my hair on that tour.
You were done with that one. Bet.
That was a long time ago. It was at Disneyland in Florida, actually, was the first show. And then when I got it working, it was all just buzzing everywhere. It was not fun.
Did it look anything like that, or was that something of it?
No, that was later on. That was a show I did somewhere. I don't remember. But that's
I saw that. I saw the Claire Brothers amplifier, and I thought, was he with Claire? That's why I asked you earlier if you'd done it with them.
No, it was probably a festival we did.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a real learning experience, learning about because gear wasn't grounded like it is now. You had to be very particular in how you wired all your racks together. It was a learning curve for
Oh, I'm
sure.
sure. Back in the day, man, that was, that was still back in the late 70s, early 80s when all that was going on. And it's, you
It was in the
didn't,
late 80s that we did.
was
Yeah,
that,
mid 80s, 85 probably.
yeah, somewhere around there. And yeah, I don't think the cases were as good as they are today, but,
Nope.
you just had to kind of get through it and make it work. So,
Well, I did. I opened those racks up and I was like, oh my God.
so did I think you told me one time, who else were you out with?
I toured with Richard Marx for a long time. I did his very first tour when It Don't Mean Nothing came out.
Really?
And we were playing 200 seat clubs, and 15 months later we were in arenas.
Wow.
So we went from 1,500 seat 200 seat, 300 seat clubs with hardly anybody there, and then that guy was a hit machine. We ended up, like I said, doing arena tours.
That's amazing that you guys, you to what, 15 months and there he goes.
Yeah, so we did half of that, and then he took 6 weeks off and recorded the second album, and then we went right back at it.
Wow. So you guys were out there humping quite a bit.
Yes, sir.
So
So
who was
yeah,
that?
I worked with Vixen, L.A. Guns,
Oh
the
God,
jazz band, Richard Marx, Dina Carter, a country
I
singer.
remember Dina. Yep.
That one started out. They said, "Hey, we've got this artist. It's going to be weekends for maybe 2 3 months." 3 years later, because the album just
That blew up.
it was like the Energizer Bunny, man. It just kept going,
Yep.
regardless of what the record company was trying to do to bury it. So,
That's funny. I saw that happen a lot. I worked for a label out of Nashville. God, this was probably back in the late '80s, and they were. This is where everything started turning. Where the dance clubs were drying up, and glam wasn't around anymore, and rock was kind of coming down, and country took over. And I was with this label working for them, and they were signing anybody and everybody that was a country artist.
yep,
They signed Garth Brooks as guitar player. They signed this person, and they would take them and they would record them and they would shelve everything. And I'd ask, I said, "Why are we?" Well, no, it's just not. It's not the right time. It's not. We don't. No, we don't know it. And I saw a lot of artists get shelved that never got on the air. They just
yep.
put them up on the shelf and they just kind of disappeared. But
It,
I
it
but then
it's all a big game. I
it
mean,
is. It
I
really is.
I know there was times that I'd be working with an artist and they'd end up doing some radio promotional show, and they're like, "What? Why are we doing this show?" Well, they're doing the show because the same management company is trying to get another act some airplay,
Yep.
and that
It,
was
it-
the cost. Hey, you want us to play this record? We need this person over
yep.
here to
Play this
come
one too. Yep.
play this radio show for us. I'll
I
never
know.
forget one time we were doing this radio show, and it was all day event. The place was packed. It was in Portland, and the band that was going right before the artist I was working for was from Portland, and they said we should be playing last. We should be playing last. So the guy I was working for said, "Okay, no problem. I'll go before you. I get out of here quicker." So he played. As soon as he was done, the entire place emptied
Le-
out. And
left.
then
Yep.
the band that was supposed to play before him got up there. There was nobody left. It was classic.
I, you know, careful what you wish for because it'll bite you in the ass really quick.
That one did. I think the band was a Portland band. I don't know if it was New Shoes or they had some pop hits, but
Oh wow, new
the guy I
shoes. I
was
haven't heard
working
that name
for,
in a long time.
yeah, how about it? The guy I was working for had more pop hits and more teeny boppers, and they all left. It was sad actually.
Yeah, I bet it was because it. They did a thing here. A friend of mine did it. It was a fundraiser thing. She's got a nonprofit here, and she brought in a bunch of the tribute bands. And there was Motley Crue, there was AC/DC, there was another bunch that was, but they had. Oh, I was trying to think of who that other band was that they put in there. Well, anyway, they put the Motley Crue bunch like in the third spot. There was four bands, and they put the Motley Crue bunch in the third spot. And I don't know who followed up on the fourth. And I said, "Don't do that. Switch them. Put Crew at the end." And oh no, we got we're gonna do this. And I said, "Okay." And I just kind of backed off of it. And man, they came out. The guy said it was I forget what the name of the band is, but they were the Motley Crue band came out, and the stadium was just going nuts. Everybody just thought this was the coolest thing. And then when the last band came on, everybody was gone. They didn't want anything to do with it.
Yep.
And she had said something. She goes, "Well, yeah, I should have listened to you." And I was like, well, But I said, "Yeah, don't take the popular ones and put them in. Don't last is all they do. That's all you need to put them in last."
The funny thing is, you say tribute bands. Now you look at Foreigner, no original guys playing.
No.
Leonard Skinner, no original guys. All the original guys are dead.
Yeah.
And They're essentially tribute bands that own the naming rights.
It was, yeah, it's kind of like, we knew all the guys in Pantera, and
Yeah.
this has kind of been a mixed thing. Me personally, Vinny he did a video years ago. They were talking about, the tribute bands and stuff. And he said, no, I don't want anything to do with it. If we're not all there, then we're not the band anymore. The band's gone. And now they're doing the Pantera thing, which I've still got friends of mine that are still on it that were with Pantera for years, and I guess it's doing okay, but I can't do it. It to me is because I knew the guys, and it was like it just doesn't feel right. And but not taking away from the guys, Zach's playing guitar, and Benante's playing drums, and they're phenomenal musicians. I'm not taking anything away from them, but it's just I don't know, something's just not right to me about it. But if the people like it, yeah, I guess keep doing it. But to me, he did say that thing. Yeah, these bands come out and they've got like one or two original guys. Everybody else is a bunch of hired guns and stuff. And he said that's not the band. And I said, yeah, he's got a point there. So I just kind of blew it off.
Yep. It happens a lot.
That does.
And the older we get, the more it happens.
Oh, I know. I see it more and more. I'm like, how old am I now? No. Yeah, it was funny. You remember Sherry Short? She
Yep.
was out of doubt. She came in one day and she had this briefcase with her. And I was thinking, she was carrying it around and it was pretty beat up. And she came over to my desk and she goes, hey, I want to show you something. I said, okay, what you got? And she showed me this briefcase. And I was like, okay. And she opened it up and it had all these backstage passes and stuff stuck to the inside of this briefcase. Well, it belonged to one of the guys in Leonard Skinner, and that briefcase was on the wreck. It was on the airplane,
Wow.
on the crash. And I went, do what? She said, this was on the airplane crash. And I said, no. And she said, it was. And I guess the guy that had it had passed. I don't think he died during in the accident, but he had passed on later on. And somehow she ended up with it, and she was going to give it to somebody in his family. And I thought, well, that was cool, but I couldn't believe it. I had a picture of it somewhere. I don't know what I did with it. I took a picture of it, but it's long since gone. But I thought that was really cool, man. That was kind of iconic to have something like that.
Yep. I have a box just full of backstage passes.
Oh,
20,
I couldn't even
25 years
imagine.
worth.
I couldn't even imagine. I mean, I have some, but I wasn't the guy that wanted to go on tour because I'm very much a homebody, and I would have friends ask me all the time, dude, come out on tour with us. You can be a stage manager, you can do this, you can do that. And I was like, I don't want to do that because I'm on a bus with 80 you stinking guys, and I
Yep.
might get to take a bath maybe a couple times a week and stuff. And I was like, no. And then of course, once everything when everything kind of dried up. Well, when I decided to grow up and I couldn't be in the live music venues anymore, and I started doing the corporate stuff with everybody, and then all of a sudden I started seeing all the old rock and roll guys I used to work with, or the old country guys I used to work with. They were going to corporate too because they were done with it.
I went down that path. I remember my first show with a corporate gig. And I get there and they're like, I was going to put up in one day. They're like, no, 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 dude, slow down. We have 3 days of load in and we're going to use it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I could get this up today.
I did the same thing that when the first one I got, they handed it to me and they go, you got 3 days to put it in. I said, okay, what are we doing on the other 2 days? Oh no, it takes 3 days. And I went, no, it doesn't. It does not take 3 days. I'm looking at it. It will not take 3 days. But I learned really quick. If you tell them they've got 3 days, they're going to take 3 days to do it
That's
because that's just more
absolutely
money in their
correct.
pocket.
That was a big eye opener for me when I first did my
Yeah,
first
me
corporate
too.
gig.
I was really shocked. I couldn't believe it. I said, 3 days? I said, we could be done with this in a few hours. And oh no, it takes 3 days. That's okay. And I learned real quick. You just go with it. Just take whatever time you need to put it in.
Yeah, I did corporate gigs starting in probably 2005.
I think I was in 2001. Yeah, because I remember that's when 9/11 happened, and I was working for this company, and I was driving in, and I'd heard it on the radio, and when I got there, they had set up a screen with a projector in the warehouse, and they were showing all the stuff from 9/11, all the news and stuff, and all of a sudden, because I was leaving for a show the next day, and that got canceled because they shut down flying and everything, and then everybody else that was out, all their shows got canceled, and they all had to rent cars or wherever they could to get home because they couldn't fly. So
Yep.
there were guys driving home from Boston and, Chicago. They were all over the place. That really kind of sucked, but where's that other?
Amazing how an incident can change the whole perspective of everything.
Oh, tell me about it.
Nothing is the same since 9/11.
Nah. Hell, nothing's been the same since 2020.
Yeah.
What the
Well,
what I
that
call
too.
I call this scamdemic. Where are you? Where you sent me some pictures of some guitars, man. You got some really nice ones here.
Yeah, that I said there's a picture of the I have a 1974 Gibson Les Paul Custom 20th anniversary in cream. That was my very first guitar I ever purchased brand new. Prior to that, every guitar I had was used or bought secondhand, and I still have that guitar to this day.
Let me see. It's this one, isn't it?
That's it.
Man, she's pretty.
At one point, those were going for about 24 grand. Then all the collectors stopped buying them, and the value, yeah, it's probably worth 8 or 9, 10, maybe 10 now.
And what year was it? What year's that guitar?
1974. It's old.
Wow. I worked with a guy one time. He was a guitar tech, and he had worked with, oh God, he'd worked with the Allman Brothers. And why can I not remember his name all of a sudden? Who was the guitar player in Allman Brothers, as everybody knew?
Dickie Betts.
Yes, Dickie Betts. Dickie Betts sold him a Les Paul for $800, and it was an early '60s, the late '50s. When did that thing come out?
The first ones are 58, 59.
His was in the early '60s. That Dickie Betts sold it to him for $800, and the kid he told me he wasn't a kid, he was a guy, and he said, "Yeah, I borrowed the money from my dad to buy it." And he goes, and I said, "What'd your dad say?" He goes, "I'm an idiot." He goes, "Why would you spend that kind of money on a guitar?" And I said, and he goes, "Well, I just want it." And I said, "Well, what's it worth now?" And he had it appraised, and I think at one time they appraised it at like $500,000. And I
Yep.
went, and I said, "There's your retirement plan right there." And he goes, "I know." So he had a ton of guitars though from people. He showed me
That
pictures of stuff, and I was like, "Wow,
that's only if you're willing to sell it.
exactly." That's the whole
You
thing
know,
right there.
that 74 Les Paul I bought, like I said, it was my first brand new guitar I ever owned. I paid $475 for it. I took a loan out
Just to
to
get it.
buy it.
Let me see. What is this one here?
That is a, a Dean Zelinsky special guitar. It's a La Voce. It's pretty cool. He was the guy that started Dean Guitars,
Mm-hmm.
and then he sold Dean Guitars, and now he's doing his uh, limited line that he does. Actually, he's out of Chicago. I went up to meet him at his shop. Actually, talked to him. He was there and took
Wow.
us in, and he had tons of guitars. But that one I ordered custom with the gold hardware, the maple neck, and then it's a purple flame guitar. It's really beautiful,
It is a pretty guitar.
and it
I
plays
saw it.
great.
Then did you send me another? Oh yeah, I know you sent me the. Oh yeah, there is a Strat in there somewhere. Where did I put it?
Yep,
Yep.
it's a blue one. Oh, that one's like a almost purple. It's deep burgundy, purplish. Pretty nice guitar. I actually recently gave that one to the granddaughter because
Oh,
she was going to be playing in a band, And I said, well, what kind of guitar do you have? Well, I just have an acoustic. Well, you need an electric guitar. So she's pretty good at playing. So I gave her the guitar. I gave her an amp, a uh, little Marshall combo amp,
Mm-hmm.
so that she could be looking cool when she went to the first band
Was
practice.
the first one she had a good axe on her, huh?
Good guitar, good amp. And then I spent a bunch of time showing her how to get all the different sounds. And then one day she came over and she was going to play. I said, well, here, play a song for me. And she had it was a Smashing Pumpkins song. And it didn't even sound like the song. I said, hang on. Here's a YouTube video, and a guy shows you exactly how to play it. She sat there for 2.5 hours and nailed it.
Really?
Yeah. So that was kind of what prompted me to give her the guitar, the fact that she had some skills and was into it. Because I just had it sitting in the closet.
Yeah,
So
well, might as well get it out and let them play it.
correct.
It's like I've got all my drums stacked up, and I'm in the middle of revamping everything in this my office slash studio kind of thing, and we're tearing stuff out and redoing it. And I told my wife, I said, I'm just going to go ahead and do this, start doing this, and I just kind of blur everything out in the background right now. You can't really see a whole bunch, but
Well, that's okay.
we're ripping the floors. We're doing all kinds of stuff in here, but I just wanted to just get this started and get it going because everybody kept asking me about it, and well,
That's
we'll go ahead and
awesome.
start it when it finished. I've been having fun with it, so not
That's
like I'm
good.
doing anything else. So there's one I want to talk to you about.
Okay.
I could never do this. Where is that one right there? That right there. The
I
lovely
hadn't.
ladies of Vixen.
I had not seen those girls in probably 15 years at that point, and it was funny. My wife and I went to the show. We were standing backstage. They were meeting everybody, and when they finally got to us, we were the last ones. Roxy, the drummer, she just like screamed, "Bocko!" and ran over and hugged me. And like I said, I toured with them a long time, and both Cher and Roxy were probably the ones I was the tightest with.
Now, I want to clarify this because you did say this that you were not married at the time that you were on the road with these ladies. Is that correct?
I was not.
That was a smart thing to not be married and be on the road with these ladies because
Yeah,
I couldn't have been married and been on the road with them either. Because
I'm too. You know what though? It becomes family, man.
yeah,
It
it
really
does.
does.
People think, oh man, no, it's not. It's like these are your family. These are like your sisters. No, you don't do stuff like that.
I
But
think I
they are.
sent. I think I sent you a picture of what people perceive backstage
Yep, you
and
did.
reality. But
Yeah, I'll pull that one up. That was funny. I've got all your stuff just lined up here. This was a good one too.
yeah, everybody thinks backstage is so glamorous.
Yeah, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. There's your backstage pictures. The top picture is nowhere true to anything that you're seeing. Down at the bottom, yeah, that's what everybody pretty much does. We all just sit
Per-
around, shoot the shit, and check our phones every once in a while.
yeah, well, I started touring. There was no cell phone, so that was
Yeah,
another whole thing.
yeah, that was a good thing that you guys. Thank God that didn't exist because we'd all be in trouble.
Well, there's that, but we don't have to talk about that.
Nah, we don't bring any of that up.
So,
I got a good friend of mine. He was a sheriff's deputy and over here by where we live, and I told him one day, he and I have been friends for 30 years. And I told him, I said, I don't know why you didn't throw my ass in jail. And he goes, I couldn't do that. And I said, well, yeah, you could have. And he goes, nah. He goes, I love you. I ain't going to do that to you. And so I was thankful of the fact that he kept an eye on us. And
yep.
if we got too far off the leash, then he would come and get us, say, no, you need to stop this and do something else. And so he was a big help there. Thank God for him.
Plus the perception of you got in trouble back then. The cops are going to take you home to your mom or your dad. And that was probably a bigger fear than anything else.
No shit. I would have told the cop, no, put me in jail. Do not take me home to my mother. I'm not dealing with that.
I
My
recall
mother's.
back in high school, if you got out of line, you had the choice of a detention with a note home to mom, one swat with the paddle with holes, two swats with the paddle with no holes. I definitely don't want that detention going home to my mom. I'll take the one swat with the
No,
holes.
yeah, no kidding. Just everybody stay quiet. I'll take the ass beating, but I'm not. Please
I
do not.
don't want my parents to know about this.
No. My mother was real adamant about that. She goes, "You go to school to learn. You don't go to school to do anything else." And I said, "You're absolutely right." But then when I got in college, that all just went way down the drain, and that was that. So,
Hey, not having a college degree did not really ever affect my life until I was 58 and I applied for a position at my place of employment. And the first thing it says, college degree required. So I called the guy that posted. I said, "Hey, I don't have a college degree, but you asked me to apply for the position." So a day later, that requirement was gone.
yeah,
Or a
that's
college
silly.
degree or equivalent experience. But yeah, I didn't have an issue till I was like I said, 58, 59, somewhere in there.
It was kind of like that too. I would see it, and people go, this is going to have a college degree," and I would apply for stuff anyway. And sometimes you get lucky, and they say, you've got the experience, so you can come on in, or they just wouldn't even talk to you.
Yep.
But I tell a lot of people, it's like you remember Mike Mahaffey.
Yep.
Yeah, Mahaffey used to live right down the road from me. He's not, he's 2 minutes down the road from me. Well, he was, he's moved since then, but his son was like that. His son was very mechanical. He would take stuff apart and put it back together and everything. And when Caterpillar Holt came in and they were looking for to his high school, they were looking for kids that were mechanically inclined, and of course Garrett was the first one they talked about, my happy son, and he and I were talking one day, and he goes, "Well, I said, well, they're giving you an apprenticeship, they're going to pay you, they're going to pay internship for you, and they're even going to offer you a job sometime after you graduate." He said, "Well, they said they might," and I said, "They will." I said, "When they see how you work, they will." And he goes, "Yeah, but I want to go to college," and I went, "Why? Don't spend all your money because it's not gonna do you any good.
Correct.
Unless you're going to be a doctor, an attorney, or something like that, don't mess with it. It's not worth it." And I found out later on in life that people don't really talk about it much anymore. They don't. It wasn't as bad as it was, early, like the mid '80s and all that. Everybody you had to have a degree, had to have a degree, and that's the reason why I went, because I just feared not getting a job. And then I realized that, hey, you can get a job in show business real easy. It's simple.
You got that right.
Just jump on in. You
Once
don't
again, that's not what you know, it's who you
who
know.
you know exactly. My dad always told me, he goes, "You're never going to make any money working for somebody else. You got to work for yourself." And I found that out
It's true.
back in 21. I think it was like,
Well, corporate entity will pay you just enough so you can live good,
uh
but n- not good enough that you're going to leave,
exactly.
or
And
not bad enough that you would leave.
no, and I think you and I talked about it before. It was, when all everything happened in 20, and then, everybody started getting laid off and everything. And I was talking to my mother one day, and she goes, "You got one thing working against you." And I kept thinking, what would that be? And she said, "Your age." And I went, "Yeah, I've kind of thought about that." And I'm thinking, it's so much easier for them to drag them out of school, out of college, or if they're just coming out of high school and they just don't pay you much and they just work you like a dog.
Yep.
And you either stick with it until you start making money, or you just bail and go try something else.
Yep.
But I saw it
I
coming.
definitely was aged out. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, I definitely was. Well, else it didn't happen. The fact that I've got MS, and and they were watching that like a hawk as well. And I know back in like 23, yeah, about 23, late 23, going into 24, my body just finally went, you can't do this anymore. You got to stop. And
I get
it
it.
was, that 17, 18 hours a day or 15, whatever it took to get it done, we did it. But, my body just one day said, nope, you're done. So here I am.
My
Uh,
longest one was 40 hours. Putting in a show that
40
had to
hours.
happen, and they had a I don't know if it was the Stray Cats or somebody played. They had to tear that entire rig down overnight and it'd be ready for 7 a.m. the next morning. Dude, that was crazy.
I, you know,
Crazyville.
I did something like that for Mark Cuban's wedding reception. And he had it at the American Airlines Center here in Dallas. And it hadn't been open very long. He had just gotten that, they had just gotten that built for the Stars and the Mavericks. And so he got married and he's going to have his bachelor party. I mean, his wedding reception there. And so they started upstairs and it's called the number five club or something. It's a club that's sponsored by Jack Daniels. And that was upstairs. And that's where they started. And then he was going to go, hey, let's go downstairs. I'm going to show you the place. And so we had covered the ice. They put drape all the way around. The stage was built on one end that was covered up. You couldn't see that. And we had another little satellite stage where a local band was playing that he liked. And so when he brought everybody down, we took them down this lit hallway, and then they walked into the actual the stadium, and people were just like blown away by the thing. And the word was is that let me see who played. We had some local. The local band was I can't even remember the name of them now, but I'm getting old. But then the other stage was covered, and so nobody even knew that stage was over there. But word started getting out that it was somebody famous was going to play. Well, originally it was supposed to be Bruce Springsteen was going to play his wedding reception, and they were out east somewhere, Jersey, New York, somewhere in Boston, somewhere in that area, and they got picked up for another show, and so that fell on Cuban's wedding reception, so they couldn't come. So he got Sammy Hagar instead. And so sometime in the middle of the night, they got up on the one stage, the little shuttle stage, and he just yelled in the microphone. He goes, "Hey, Sammy, are you ready?" And Sammy just hit a chord, and they just dropped the drape, and it was just boom, it was on. Now you got to remember there was maybe 200 people there for this, maybe three, but it was hardly anybody there. So, and my wife had begged me. She goes, "Can I come? Can I come? Can I come?" And I said, "I don't know. I don't." And I said, "I'll tell you what. I'll bring you in through the dock, and I'll sneak you in that way." So I brought her in and stood her right there by the corner of the stage, and she stood right there, stage left, just leaning on the stage, watching the show the whole night. And she thought she was in high cotton then, man. She'd been right there when you know Sammy Hagar was playing, but but we kind of had the same thing. We had to be out of there because I think there was a basketball game the next morning. And by NBA rules, the visiting team has to have access to the court by 7 a.m. to practice. And so
Wow.
we were supposed to be done at midnight for the reception. Of course, Cuban decides because you know, he's having a good time, and Sammy's passing out bottles of tequila like they're, like nothing. And so they decided, hey, let's go a little later, let's go a little later. So we didn't finish until like 2 a.m.
Jesus.
And the house manager is there raising hell because he goes, we got to get this out. We got to get the floor back in place. I said, understanding. I said, I'm working these guys. I'm going to get them out as fast as I can. But as we would bring stuff down, get it cased up, and get it ready to go to the truck. Well, somebody would come in from the house, bringing in flooring and stuff, and push all of our stuff back towards the back of the room again to the hall. And I kept saying, guys, and then the house manager would come in yelling at me, going, "You're not out." And I said, if you tell your guys to stop pushing my stuff to the back, I'll get out of here. So finally, we fought through all that, but that's not fun.
Nope.
Trying to beat the clock. Hell no with that.
Yeah, my one of my second corporate gigs was in Detroit, and it was a wedding reception at an ice rink because the two people getting married were world class skaters. So we go in there and we're trying to set up on this ice. We're going overnight. By the time they get all the gear up and ready to go, somebody miscalculated the draw for the lighting rig. As soon as they fired up the lights, it smoked one of the generators we had out back. So I had two, one for lighting, one for audio and video. And it's now, 10 o'clock at night. And I'm like, dudes, we got to have this reception in the morning. We're not putting the lighting on the audio truck because it's a 10-minute reception and then, skating after that. If this thing goes down, we're not getting paid. So I said, we need to get a generator. They go, well, the only one we can find is on the back of a semi-trailer. It's like huge. Great, get it here. Yeah, but it costs 4 times as much as the one we had. Yeah, and if we don't have one, we don't get paid.
Yeah, it's going to cost
They,
even
they
that much
couldn't
more.
they couldn't grasp that concept. It's 10 o'clock at night. If the one you could get sits on a semi trailer, get it.
Yeah, I get it. It's making power, so just bring it in.
So that was a big learning curve. The other thing is never set aluminum trusses on ice because within minutes they're frozen into the ice.
Yep.
Yeah, it was an interesting gig. It came off. They did their vows and then tore everything down, and then they did a little skating show for the people. It was good.
It was quick and probably painful, but it was still
Yep.
not too much. Yeah, the corporate had certainly there's a lot of learning curves for that because the stuff that I'd see back in the days when I'm doing the venues and stuff, and I did back then. It was when I was doing the dance club and stuff, and it kind of fizzled out, and everybody went to country, and so we had to make the jump, and we had to learn country. We just had to go do it. And what was funny was that when I started going in and started dealing in the country, I started seeing a lot of other people that I knew that were doing, glam bands and all that stuff. And all of a sudden they're doing country too. And I was
Yep.
like, what happened? He said, well, everything's dried up, man. Nobody's touring right now. It was just a turn and
It was
it
all
did,
country bands,
it was. It was
country
all
artists.
country. My God, that's all we dealt with pretty much was country. I did dealt with some other ones, but it was all pretty much country. But it was fun. I mean, we met a lot of great people, a lot of great musicians and everything else. And we also met whole lot of assholes too that came along with it. If
Well, you're gonna get
that
that anywhere you go.
that's anywhere though. Yeah, that is that a good friend of mine, Alton LeGrappe, God rest him, but he told me one day one of the bands that he was out with was coming into one of our venues, but he was off the road because he had something to take care of or something. So he goes, now the guy that's going to be the stage manager there, he goes, you got to watch him. He's a little testy. And I said, don't tell me that. And he goes, oh yeah, he's a little testy. You got to watch him. I said, all right, I'll keep an eye on him. And I brought guys in to help get the trucks unloaded, get the stuff on the stage and everything else. And one of the guys came to me and he said, hey, Gavin. I said, yeah, I know. What's up? He goes, this guy's an ass. And I said, okay, just deal with it and I'll go talk to him. So I went and talked to him and I said, hey, and he goes, yeah. And I introduced myself and I said, I run the place. And he goes, oh, okay. And I said, I'm just going to let you know something. He said, yeah, what's that? And he was just being an ass. And he goes, yeah, what's that? And I said, if you treat my people on the out the way you're treating them right now, I said, you'll load that truck by yourself. And he just
Yep.
kind of, yeah, whatever. And I said, try me, test me, and we'll see how this goes. And sure enough, after they had finished and we were getting them loaded out, and two of the guys came to me and they said, man, one of the guys goes, I'm leaving. I'm not doing this. And I said, just hang on a minute. And I called all the guys and brought them all in. I said, all of y'all, go home. You'll get your minimum. Just go home. And then here come this stage manager from the band. He goes, well, where's all the guys? And I said, they went home. Well, we got to get this loaded on the truck. And I said, no, you get to load the truck. And I said, I promised you if you messed with me, I was going to do that. And he goes, well, you can't. And I said, sure I can. And I just walked off and left him. Of course, my buddy calls me the next day. He goes, what the hell did you do? And I said, what do you mean, what did I do? He goes, well, he called me and he was just on a tear. And I said, I don't care. I said, I told him, keep your mouth shut and just let my guys do the work. And I said, we'll get it done. But he couldn't keep his mouth shut. And he goes, well, yeah, he's got a hard time with that. And I said, well, I bet he does next time because he'll be loading that truck again by himself. I hated people like that. It just, I'd get those old rock and roll guys come in. They were going, well, here's how it's going to be. And I was like, no, we're not doing this. So,
Yeah, I had a show I was doing, and I was a tour manager, tour accountant. So after the show, I'm going to settle the show, and the guy was cheeseball at best. So we're talking. I'm going, well, look, this sound didn't cost this much. Yeah, it did, because it was like twice the price. And the catering was god awful. Well, just be careful, because my wife did the catering. And then so I started complaining about something else. He goes, hang on a second. And we stop, bends over, opens his drawer, sets his gun on the desk. All right, now we can continue. I think we're done. It's all good. I'll let somebody else deal with this.
yeah, we're finished. See ya.
Oh,
Bye.
yeah, by the way, my brother and cousin are the sheriffs.
Oh, God.
Joplin, Missouri, or Mississippi, one of those.
It was Joplin, Missouri. I know it well. That's
Yeah,
where
it was kind of scary.
I was born in Kansas City, but my she's from Missouri, so I know all those places up in there.
So I
It
think
was,
we're done.
but yeah, it's just the stories that you could tell just from all the dipshits you met over the years that just going through and doing stuff, and
I,
you just see things that they do. You're just going, why? I had,
and some of the stories you're giving here are just jogging my memory from other stuff. I mean, I've been with my wife 20 years, and she still hears new stories. And then, of course, there's the whole book of stories she'll never hear about. But
oh yeah, yeah, I've got many of those locked away that she'll never know about. She gave me a hard time about when I was a club jock, and she go, "You guys are just a bunch of horrors." And I went, "Yeah, I was in my 20s. I was having fun. Why not? You know?" She goes, "Well, you know." And I was like, "Well, yeah, that was a lifetime ago, though. That not happening now."
got that right.
But she always thought, when I was out on the road, I'd leave go do a show. She goes, "Well," because I had my crews in different cities where I go that I like to have, and I booked a lot of females, but females work their asses off.
Yes, yes,
I
sir.
loved it. She goes, "Well, I'm sure you got such and such." And I said, "I do. I have all of these people." And she goes, "Well," and I just told them, I said, "They're all my road girlfriends, so you don't have to worry about it. I'm not bringing them home or anything." So, but that was always funny. She goes, "You're going to see your girlfriends?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll get to see them." But I
Yeah, when
no,
I was working in Vegas doing corporate stuff, if it was a show that had a rock band, I brought in one of the guys to do the audio. If it was a corporate speaking event, I had this female sound engineer. She didn't miss a cue. She didn't miss because she paid attention.
yeah,
She
exactly.
did all those long, boring shows.
Long
But
and boring, but that you got to have that, and you're right. They just paid better attention. They worked their butts off, and they just
yep,
didn't care. It was fun to have them because I knew it was going to get done and going to get done right. Of
that's
course, we had
right.
a lot of guys that were good at it too, but I wouldn't.
I had one guy, one union guy in Vegas, comes to me and he goes, "Hey man, every time I get on one of your calls, you send me home in 4 hours. What do I have to do to get on your full shows? Well, or why aren't you putting me on for full shows?" And I just looked at him and I said, "Because you got to ask me why." He went, "What?" When you
That
figure it out,
that's very valid. Yeah, if you're asking why,
because you got to ask me why I send you home.
I had that one time when Toby Keith was, another one. God bless him. He was alive and he played our venue many times, and Toby'd come in with a new sound guy one year, and he was an old rock guy. I don't know who he'd been out on the road with, but he came in and we had drawn up our own, not a writer, but our basically our stage plots and put lists and all that stuff. And I said, here's what we have. If you need something different, let us know beforehand and we'll try to get it cross-rendered or whatever we got to do to make it happen. But don't wait until the last. Do not show up the day of show, start making requests because it's not going to happen. Well, he showed up and first thing he goes, well, I don't like this console. And I said, well, that's it. He goes, no, I've got it. It was a, I think you remember the Yamahas, the old 3000 and the old
Yep.
3500. Remember, we
Yes,
had a
sir.
3000 and he
Yamaha
wanted a,
3 PM 3000.
yep,
That
the
that that
PM
was
3000. We had it, but he wanted a 3500. And I said, you get the 3000. He goes, well, I guess we just won't go on. And I said, okay. What he failed to know, well, he didn't know, is that I knew Toby's tour manager. I knew Toby's I knew all the guys in Toby's band. I knew all of them. So I went to his manager and I said, hey, and I said, we've got a little bit of an issue. He goes, what's up? And I said, well, your sound guy told me you guys are not going on unless I change the console out. And he goes, he did what? And he starts walking out. And I said, no, 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 no. And I held him up and said, don't you go anywhere. I said, I'm going to yell at you and I want you to play along with me. So I said, we're going to stand in the doorway where he can see us and we're going to play it. And so he goes, okay. So we stood in the doorway and and I told him, I said, he's not going to come in and make any demands on me. I don't give a shit what you guys want to do. I said, if you're not going to play, I said, just get out there on the stage. And I was very loud about it. And I said, you get out there on stage, get all your crap off my stage, get it back on your bus and get the hell out of here. Because I said, I'm done with this. I'm not playing this. And then I kind of pushed him out of the doorway to where he couldn't see us anymore. And he looked at me and goes, I said, just let it stew for a little bit, let it stew. And we were looking out the doorway, we were peeking out the doorway, watching him. And he was like looking and, he was trying to, fix stuff and everything. And then I looked over at my friend and said, now you can go. And he went out there and tore him a new ass about that. And then after that, every time I'd walk by front of the house, hey, Gavin, is everything okay? Can I do anything for you? Everything good? Everything's fine? I said, yeah, everything's fine. And I just keep on walking.
amazing how that works.
It is. And it was like, don't do that. I mean, he didn't have the power to do that. And I thought when he did it, I said, oh, you're going to pay for this one. I'm going to make sure you pay for this one.
He thought he had the power.
Oh, yeah, he did. He definitely thought he did.
Once again, not what you know, who you know.
Who you know. That, it was kind of, didn't you? I'm sure you kind of dealt with it. I did a lot with, backstage. Well, people always want to be backstage, and we always had a term for people backstage. They were called in the way, is what it was, because you're not doing any good backstage. You're not going to meet the artist. You're not going to take pictures. You're not going to be able to go sleep with them, get an autograph, any of that stuff. So you're just basically in the way. And they would just, they would fight to get back. And I never understood why you want to be backstage. I mean, I'd end up backstage at certain shows and stuff, but that was just because of friends and stuff. I didn't go back there to try to catch the artist. Except one time, there was one guy I had to, hang on a second, I got to move this over here real quick. There was one guy that I went to see a show here in Dallas. I don't remember where it was. It might have been at the Bronco Bowl when it was still open. I don't remember.
Yeah, that was a nightmare gig.
Megadeth was playing. Yes. And I don't remember if Pantera was playing with them or not, because I had a friend of mine's their lighting guy. He was Pantera's lighting guy for every Sonny. And I think Sonny was there. We were back in the green room. And I was sitting there with them, and I could hear up and down the hallway, somebody was just yelling, screaming. And I looked out the door and I said, what the hell's going on? Well, it was Dave Mustaine. And he was pissed about something. I don't know what it was. But when you go backstage and you're talking to people and you have a cocktail or two or 6 or 12, something like that.
One's too many, 10's not enough.
And I was probably about on 7 or 8, 9, maybe. I don't know where. And they had these flyers that they had made that had Megadeth on there. And so there was one back in the green room. I picked it up and I said, Sonny, you got a Sharpie? And he goes, yeah, I got it right here. And he handed it to me. He goes, wait, for what? And I went, nothing. I just needed a Sharpie. And so I've got my little flyer. I've got my Sharpie and I'm sitting there by the door and I could hear him go by. And then I heard him come back. And so I'd step outside and I go, hey, Dave, can I get you to autograph this flyer for me? And he goes, I ain't got time for this shit. Get back inside. I ain't got time. And so I went back inside. And Sonny's looking at me. He goes, "I'm going to kill you." He goes, "You're not doing it." He goes, "I am going to kill you." And I said, "Nope, nope, nope, nope. I'm not done yet." So he goes, "Gavin, please don't." And I said, "Okay, I'll behave." And so I hear him come by again. I step back outside. "Well, what about now, Dave? Can you do it now?" "No, God, and he's just screaming and yelling. I went back in the door, and Sonny's looking at me, and he goes, and he goes, "Please?" And I said, "Come on, one more time. I got to get it done." And so I waited a few minutes, and here he come back, and I hear him screaming and yelling. So I stepped back out. I said, "What about now, Dave?" And he snatched it out of my hands. He autographed it, and he threw it back at me. And he goes, "Get the hell away from me." And I was like, "Okay, fine." Picked it up, walked back in, and I showed Sonny. He said, "I got it. I got it right here." And he goes, "You're an asshole." He goes, "I swear to God." But I mean, to me, that was just fun, just to rub somebody the wrong way, because I never liked it when you were backstage and people go, "Now don't talk to him, don't look him in the eye, don't do this, don't do that." And I was like, then don't put him backstage with me, because I'm not going to do that.
I'll never forget. We were at San Antonio at that whatever the big stadium enclosed joint is, and it was a country music festival. And we're walking down, and the headlining artist is coming, and everybody's like, everybody has to look to the wall. Look to the wall. It's like,
Yep.
seriously?
hmm I forget what I was doing. I was doing something for it was the black tie event. It was the Dallas Gay and Lesbian Association. And this thing they put on was a fundraiser every year. They put it on every year, and it was huge. I mean, it was massive. And one year it was they brought Stockard Channing in as the keynote speaker for that. And then they said, "Now you can't speak to her. Don't look at her. If she's coming your way, turn and look the other way." And I was like, "Oh
So
no,
ridiculous.
no, no." So I'm walking down the hall, and here she came out of the green room, and she's coming towards me as I'm going down the hallway. So we're going to pass each other, and she walks by, and I looked at her and said, "How are you doing tonight?" And she just her eyes got really big, and she just almost took off running down the hallway. And I thought, really, it didn't need to be this way, guys. I'm just, but I never got that. I hated that. I just,
It's
you're not that
ridiculous.
damned important.
You
And
got
you
that
knew
right.
that. You knew that. You were in the middle of that mess all the time.
Yep. I'll never forget. I was doing one artist, and right after the show, somebody's trying to get into the dressing room. I said, "Hey, you can't come in here, man. You gotta go away." Then I learned to find out it was David Geffen.
Oh, shit.
I kicked him out.
Geffing out. Well, I did something one time. I don't remember where we were. I don't even remember what show it was, but they had brought Donny Osmond as the entertainment. And I thought, Donny Osmond. I was like, okay, this would be interesting. That dude is a performer.
He's really good.
Oh my God, he was unbelievable. And he's doing all these songs. I was like going, I know this song. Wait, I know this song. And my sister was a huge Osmond fan. She's 5 years, she's 5 years older than me. So she was a big Osmond fan. But I knew all the songs, but he was doing two two shows because he did one like early and he was doing a later one. So the president of whatever it was we were doing, he wanted to go take his family back and meet Donnie, and I wasn't anywhere around, and they found out where the green room were, and so the green rooms were, and so they just kind of wandered into the green room. Well, there's Donnie Osmond standing there in his underwear, and I thought, and somebody called me on the radio and they said, "You got to come down here now," and I went down there, and there's Donnie's manager and the other guy, that whoever this guy was, the president or whatever, and Donnie was not happy. And I walked down and I said, "What's going on?" And they said, "Well, this gentleman just decided he wanted to come into Donnie's green room and he was not prepared for this." And I said, "I thought all the meet and greets were supposed to be cleared before," but no, this guy just decided he was going to take it upon himself. And I looked at it and I said, "Mr. Donnie, I apologize. I will take care of this." And he just kind of waved me off and he said, "Oh, thanks." And so I just pulled him out, and he almost didn't go back on. He was that mad. He was talking like he goes, "Maybe I'm just not going to do the second show," but then he came back out and did it. But man, that dude was an entertainer. I can tell you,
He's really good.
he is. And I worked with his sister too, with Marie.
Yeah, I
Actually,
saw they had a show they were doing together in Vegas. Got to see that. They were really good.
she wandered in. I was in the office, and she just came walking in. And two of my other guys were in there with me, and we all just stopped. She was amazing. She was beautiful. She walked in and went, "Oh my God." And she was just the sweetest person on the planet. She just came back there and we just sat and shot the shit. And we were just goofing around and she was really cool. And she's a great performer too. You know, you can't find anybody in that family that's not a good performer, I don't think.
Yeah, they're all talented.
Yep. So, did you say, were you out with Duran Duran at one time?
I was. I did their um, the wedding album. It came out in '91, maybe '92. It had "Come Undone" and the wedding song, and I toured with them for 13 months. Their whole deal was we're going to tour where it's summer. So January, February, December, we were in the southern hemisphere, and it was playing stadiums, and then they came back to the States, and it was maybe, outdoor venues. But the rest of the world, they were still huge. We were doing a show down in South America, and we were basing out of Argentina, Buenos Aires, and we had a show in Resistencia. So the band didn't want to stay overnight there because there was no good hotels. So we rented a jet to fly us down there. We do the show. The band comes, so there was the four principal guys, and then they had the backup musicians. So we had made arrangements for the airport to stay open till 11:15. So they finished at 11. I walked them off the stage when the rest of the band was still playing. We were in a car on our way. We get on this private jet, and as we're starting to go down the runway, all the lights go off. They closed it down. So we took off in a nick of time, and we ended up, as we're flying back to Buenos Aires, there's a big storm front, and we were forced to land in Asuncion, which was a really dump. And we came in, landed there right after a big 737 or something with a lot of people was forced to land there as well. So there was really no hotels. So we get this hotel that was, like $3 a night was the 5-star hotel there. If you ever seen any of those movies where they got the guys driving with the hay in the back of the car, and it was pretty bad. So we get there, nobody slept. So then at about 5 a.m., the pilot comes, we got to go. So we all rushed to go to the airport because we didn't want to stay there. And we get to the airport, and on the horizon, there's this little black line. Well, within 10 minutes, it's this massive wall of storm. The pilot's like, we cannot take off now. So then we sat in the airport there waiting for the storm to pass. And we get back to Buenos Aires after the rest of the party that stayed in the other city overnight. We got back to Buenos Aires before us. It was like, wow, guys, spent all this money to not have to stay out there, and it turned out to be worse than what it would have been.
If you just stayed for the other night,
Correct.
And toughed it out. God,
Yeah, that was pretty crazy.
that would have sucked for sure. Of course, I don't think crappy hotels and stuff. Well, yeah, there was a few. I worked for a group early when I got into corporate, and they were kind of scary, run by the Russian mob, as they always said. They called themselves, but it was, they were like, yeah, you got to share rooms and you got to do this. I was like, oh my God, I don't want to do that. That always sucked. But that was me, and that was the whole thing about being on a bus with all these people, and I couldn't do it. I don't know. I guess it takes a certain mindset to do stuff, but
Well,
I just couldn't do that.
when I first started doing the bus thing, was kind of an adventure.
Yeah, if you're young, I would think it would be
I was
great.
20,
Yep.
and it was like, hey, this is kind of cool. Got this killer bus, got tunes, It's got a fridge. We don't have to drive. And then everybody'd go to sleep, and then you would hear the the driver go, "All right, everybody's asleep." He'd punch it, and you could just hear the whine of the tires.
Just
It
open
was
it up and go.
crazy. Yep.
Oh God. Yeah, it was I would have friends tell me about, because you're not supposed to number two on the bus,
That's right. And
and
you,
they
you learn to put the lid down because I worked with some tours that had females. If you didn't put the lid down and they fell in that toilet, you,
oh
you
no.
never you never heard the end of that one.
Oh God, no. But I heard the story about they would put the plastic bag in there and then go into the plastic bag and take the plastic bag and throw it out the door as they're driving down the freeway. And I was like, going, okay, it sounds good, I guess. But I was like, no, I don't
We
think I
we never had that. We would
really.
make the bus driver stop at a truck stop somewhere. And then
No, these guys would.
one time, we stopped in the middle of the night, and the rule was if you got off the bus, you put your pass with your picture on the driver's seat, so that if your pass is still there, he knows you're not back on the bus.
Yeah.
So one day, this guy forgets to put his pass on the driver's seat, goes into the truck stop, comes back out, the bus is gone. Well, we don't even know he's not there until we go to check into the next hotel. The bus driver had to go back and get this band member.
Oh God. Hopefully, it wasn't too far.
And he didn't have his wallet. He didn't have anything. He took a couple bucks to go buy something and use the facilities
Oh
at the truck
God.
stop. He's standing there, basically in shorts and a t-shirt with no ID, no nothing. Finally, they
Fun,
figured out where we left him.
fun times right there. Oh God. Yeah, I just don't know. I just that the whole living on the bus thing was just I like I said, if you were back when you're in your 20s or whatever, and yeah, that would be because I knew a lot of friends that were in high school with, and some of them went out on tour with bands, but they were loving it. But I figured as you got older, it just kind of would probably suck.
It did. It got harder and harder to the
Oh, it
point where
sure
I
did.
finally said, okay, I'm not going to do any more tours. Then, of course, they call you and they throw more money at you. Hey, we need you to
Yeah.
do this. So finally, when I was really done, I just changed my phone numbers.
Just just got rid of the phone, did all that. Yeah.
Got new phone numbers and didn't tell anybody.
Well, if you're out there and they're looking for you, they're gonna try to drag you in. I
And
got
when
drugged back in a couple times.
it's not like it is today, though. Back then, it was harder to find people.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah,
Everything
you
wasn't,
really can't hide from much anymore.
you can't hide from anything anymore. Google kindly sends me an email every 2 weeks. Hey, here's everywhere you've been in the last 2 weeks. Really? Now you're going to flaunt that you're tracking what I'm doing?
I know. I get those too, and I'm like,
You're
well, wait,
killing
what?
me.
What the hell are you guys?
You
What are you
went
people
here, you
doing?
went there, you stopped over here, you were here for 20 minutes. It's crazy.
I'm like, go find somebody that's more important or more interesting to follow around. Don't follow me. Shit, I'm just me. I'm not looking to be tracked down every time, and I don't
Pretty,
think anybody's looking for me on Google anyway. I
pretty
hope not.
funny.
Yeah, it is. It is funny, and I'm very thankful that, you know, when we were all doing it, we didn't have the camera phones and all that stuff
Thank
because,
God.
oh, no doubt, because that could have been just real scary. I mean, that could have been horrific. Is what that could have been.
But I look now and I think, wow. So there's a lot of things that I have no photo reminders of, which is kind of sad. I was in Germany when the wall was coming down. That was pretty crazy.
Wow, I bet that was cool.
Yeah, you go in Berlin, if you're in West Berlin, it's like full Technicolor HD. And you look over the wall in East Berlin, and it was like black and white TV.
Oh,
It was such a drastic difference in just the whole lifestyle. There's no way that it was going to stay communist because people on the East Berlin would look over and see people driving Mercedes and Beamers, and then they got all these little Russian crap box cars,
Junk, yeah, that they're having to get around in.
and you could see over the wall to what's going on the other side. It was
Well,
inevitable.
I'm kind of like that because I'm kind of a car guy. Well, I'm not as much anymore. Well, since we sold all of them, but um, I was always enthralled with Cuba and all the cars that were still there because they always said that when Castro came in and took over that they stopped in the 1950s, and I didn't believe it until I started watching stuff and looking into it, and the cars that they drive over there from the 50s to 60s, and I mean these are all classic cars. They're cabs that are doing this or doing that, but they have car clubs over there and everything else. But these people cannot buy parts for them, so they have to make their own parts for these things.
That's crazy.
And I thought this is amazing to say the guy go, hey, well, I need this brake liner, I need this. Oh no, I don't have that, but you can't get it, but we'll make one. And they would go find some of another car and they would make it fit. And I was like, well, that's unbelievable. Like I couldn't believe that how they do it, and they're still doing it. And I feel bad for those people because I want to go just so I can see the cars and just check it all out, but I just never had the chance to go.
Yeah.
And
I remember the first time I flew into Mexico City and we're driving around, and all these people in Mexico City are driving brand new 1969 Volkswagen Bugs because they were still making the same car.
oh yeah,
They bought all the dies, took them down there, and just kept making them. They never changed. It was
I forget.
crazy.
What was I? We went to Mexico City and did. Oh, we did the International AIDS Conference in Mexico City, and it was funny because they were going to ship all of the gear, and I went, "Don't do that." See, I have an uncle that's in Homeland Security. Well, he was. He's retired now, but he was during that time. He was still at Homeland Security, and he was in Mexico City. So I called him and I said, "Hey, we're coming down there." I said, "Let's go to lunch or something." He goes, "Well, let's check it out. We'll see." He was having some medical issues and stuff, but um, we were talking and I told him, I said, "Yeah, they're going to send all the gear down." And he goes, "Don't do that." And I said, "I kept telling them not to do that." And he goes, "Gavin, don't tell them to not do that." And what did they do? They
They
sent the trucks down anyway.
and two trucks disappeared.
And yes, they did. And
Yeah, I was working helping with that, and I told
you
them,
remember
I
that?
said
Yep,
I said you need to use a proper international rock and roll freight forwarder,
exactly.
and they didn't. They used whoever two semi.
Yeah.
I remember that they were going around trying to get stuff to make the show happen.
Well, we had there was a group down there because I forget who was with us. There was another production manager. I don't remember who it was though. But he came walking in and he said, "Hey, did you hear?" And I said, "What? Did they steal the trucks?" And he said, "Who told you?" And I said, "Nobody." I said, "It was pretty obvious it was going to happen." And so they were on the scramble. Well, we had a group down there called Photo Nitsa was a video group. And so I went to them and said, "Hey, can you guys get all this stuff that we need for this?" And they said, "Oh yeah, we can make that happen." So I started talking to people and finding out. And so I went back to the accounting execs and said, "Hey, I found this. Oh well, we're looking to it. We're looking." I said, "Okay, fine. There it is if you want it." And it happened. We made it happen. But they found one of the trailers, and they said we got to have somebody that needs to come down and verify it. So we had this one kid that was with us. He was a part timer or he was a contractor or something. So we threw him in a cab and sent him out there to check it out. And I thought, what did we just do? We sent this kid out. We're in Mexico City, this white kid. We've thrown him in a cab and we're going to send him out here with this guy that we know nothing about. And they said, oh no, he'll be okay. He'll be okay. And I was like, okay. And so he came back, but he said, yeah, there was a trailer there. And I said, was anything in it? He goes, yeah, there was a little, like a 4-foot stick of truss that was still in there. And I said, well, could have made it happen. We didn't, but
I
they just,
remember that because
I kept saying,
Kyle
don't,
Call was losing his mind.
hello. I wasn't going to mention any names, but you did. Hello. Yep. Because
Losing his mind.
I said, I wouldn't do that, but Well, I wasn't. I was. I guess I was too low on the food chain for anybody to listen to me about it. So I said, "Well, you're on your own." And I called my uncle when I got down there, and he goes, "So, did they? What did they steal?" And I said, "Everything." And he said, "I told you they were going to." He said,
Yeah, I think
"Because
the two trailers got parked outside of the freight yard,
yep,
not in the gated yard. They were
yep."
parked outside.
Because I asked, I said, "Why did they do that?" And they, "Oh, well, they couldn't get any more trucks in the gated lot, and so they had to put them out, keep them on the outside of the fence." And I went, "Yeah, okay." And then they go, "Well, the police are working very hard to help us find this." And I said, "No, the police are working very hard to find out who took it because they didn't get their cut. So that's why they're looking at it." And it was a mess. It
I
went. We had no issues, but it was still it was pretty interesting
I
though.
remember when that happened.
God, they stole all kinds of stuff out of that truck. But
I had
you all,
a time we were doing a show somewhere in South America, and we had a lot of gear that we were flying with as baggage. And we get on the plane, everybody's on the plane, the plane pulls out of the gate, goes out, stops on the runway, and I look out the window and I see this little tram luggage cart thing coming, and all our gear's on it. And then the truck comes with the stairs that comes up to the plane. Guy comes in the plane, he goes, "We've impounded all of your equipment." Well, it's right there. Yeah, it's been impounded. You got to pay the fee to get it out of impound.
yep.
20 grand.
Oh
As soon as
God,
we paid him, the guys put all the gear on the plane, and then we took off.
that's something else. How you could just so easily just a little grease of palm would just get you in so many different places.
Yeah, and then I turned the receipt into the accounting firm. Hey, what is this 20 grand departure tax? Don't ask questions you don't want to know.
Mm-mm. Let it go. It is what it is. We used to do that too. We had a house in Cancun, and my parents did. And when we'd take stuff down there, we just load stuff in the suitcases. We had these huge suitcases. We just took stuff down to help. We had to go down and fix the house or anything. And of course, when you'd get to customs, the guy would open up and look at it. And of course, we would just kind of flip a couple $100 bills out there, and they'd just zip it back up. Say, "Okay, go ahead. You're good." Never say a word
Yep,
about it.
the art of the spiff.
Yes, it is. What can I do for you, sir? Well, damn, Bob, this has been fun, man. I've really
Yeah,
enjoyed this. It's good
good
talking
to
to you. I
talk
haven't
to you,
seen you in
man.
forever, man. How's Cali treating you? You enjoying the weather out there?
Yeah, the weather's fantastic.
You didn't have any issues with the fires, did you?
We were far enough away.
Or you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I told you or not. My cousin's daughter and her husband, they have a newborn baby. They were out there, and they were like, they didn't know. They said they were told that it was coming their way, and so they just kind of, as a safety thing, they just packed it up and flew back over here to Texas to
Yeah.
stay for a little while. But once they
Our,
cleared up, they went back.
our power was turned off for 5 days.
Oh wow,
Not it went out. They turned it off so that no fires could start.
interesting.
5 days.
5 days. Ugh, that
You
had to
don't you
suck.
don't realize how much what you do uses power till you
Oh, I
don't have it.
know exactly. You'd be God. That would be horrible. 5 days.
Yeah, it was pretty intense. We ended up
No.
getting a generator, putting it
Oh, did you?
outside, plugging in the fridge, plugging in the fan,
Just anything you can to keep it. Oh, I don't.
essentials.
It wasn't too hot out there at that time, was it?
No, it wasn't terrible, but still, I don't want to have to go restock the whole fridge and all the freezer.
Oh yeah, no kidding. That would suck.
But yeah, California's been good.
Good. I'm glad it's doing well for you. I'm glad you're hanging in there, and I'm hanging in here, kind of, sort of. I'm here. I'm just doing this, and I'm getting to visit with people and see how everybody's doing and
Well,
see
I
what's
think
going
I
on.
think about you often, man.
I do too, man. You were always good to me, and I always appreciated it. Anytime I was in Chicago, you took care of us, and no complaints there. I've always enjoyed working in Chicago. Chicago was fun. and then it just got ripped away from me.
Yep. I
But
know
that's
I
okay.
know the feeling. And now I look at some of the people that are
Still
VP
there?
jobs. And it's like,
Uh,
really? They couldn't even get their way out of a wet paper bag.
you know what? I kind of, I still talk to a few people, but I don't talk to a lot of people over there anymore. And I don't, and, I did ask the question at one time because I did some things and that were, like, don't send me out to a show and give me all this truss. And I need like 600 truss bolts and you forget to send the truss bolts. That kind of sucks. And then you're stuck in, I don't know, I think we were in New Orleans maybe, and luckily Westbrook bailed me out of that one because he was at the convention center, and I just called him and said, "Dude, I need 600 truss bolts." Well, who do I bill it to? And I said, "You know who to bill it to, and bill it twice as far as I'm concerned. I need the bolts." So, and my question was, did the left hand ever figure out what the right hand was doing? And I get the same answer every time. Nope, not yet. I said, okay.
Yeah, that when I went to Chicago, that was the first thing I did was get the warehouse in order and sending gear to show properly because
Yeah,
that's where it all starts.
exactly.
If you don't send it out properly, you're not going to have a show. And then we had this guy who would load up all this feeder cable, but he would put some tools or something under the feeder cable. So it was like a disaster to get the stuff. So I made him come to show site after he sent it out. All right, here's what I need. I need this piece. Well, dude, that's on the bottom of all that feeder cable. Correct.
Right.
Now
Exactly.
take all the feeder cable out and get the stuff we need that's on the bottom.
Take it all out and get the
Uh,
stuff we need, and then next time you won't do that.
It never happened again.
No, I'm with you on that, man. I figured out that the best way to get to them is sometimes you just got to hit them in the wallet and say, "Nope, we're not doing that." And yeah, it was. I mean, I just saw some stuff, or there was a lot of stuff I didn't see too because it just never showed up, and it was wheels off there for a while, and I was like going, "Oh my god!" And 22 was rough. 22 was like I think I did like 17 events that year. I
Wow,
mean, I was
that's
I
a
was
lot.
humping. It was, and I was humping, but I was doing it for the fact that I was looking at it as I was picking up as much as I could to make up for what I didn't get the year before,
I hear you.
and so I was trying to make that up. But I just damn near killed myself at that point. And then that's when in 23 everything kind of scaled back some, and I did something for True Value Hardware, I think, and I'll tell you how squirrely this show was. It was Darius Rucker was playing that night, and so we set it. They came in at 7 in the morning and started their session, and the CEO from True Value came in and did their thing, and they talked to everybody, and got everybody amped up and everything, and they were done at like they started at like 7 or 7:30. We were done by 9:30 or 10. It wasn't late. And then we had to reset the stage for Darius Rucker that night. And by the time it was all done and they got in and played, did their thing, they were gone, and we got all tore up. We were like almost 24 hours into it then.
Yep.
And I thought, and then after that one, that's when my body went, hey, no, we're not doing this anymore. So
Yeah.
just wrap it up. And I finished a couple other ones I had, and then I was done. I said, I can't do it anymore. It's just my body wouldn't take it.
You'll get there.
Getting old's fun.
Yes, it is. All right, man.
Bob, I'm looking at the clock, man. We went way over, but I don't care. For you, I mean, you've got carte blanche with me anytime. If you
All
want to
right, man.
yell at me and say, I want to come on and tell you some more stories, damn it, you're coming on then. But
You got
I
it, man.
want,
Because
I want to
God
thank
knows
you for
I
coming.
have many more war stories.
Oh, I know you do, but I want to thank you for taking the time to do it today. I
Sure,
know it's
man.
a Saturday and everything, but I appreciate it. I thank you for everything you did for me over the years in Chicago. You looked out for us, and I'm always grateful for that. You always looked out for us, and I
Cool,
appreciate it.
man.
Love you much, man. I really do.
All
You
right.
were great to work with, and please, if you ever want to do this stuff again, you just holler at me. Tell me. Hey, what we got there?
The dogs have come back into the house.
They're back.
That's
That's all
right.
right. They're
All right,
good
man.
dog.
You have a good one.
You do the same, man. Thank you very much.
Um,
Hey,
um,
everybody, be sure if you like all this, hit the like and subscribe button to all this stuff. We appreciate you guys coming check it out. Another big thank you to Mr. Bob Bach, Mr. Bocko himself.
hey,
Bob,
thanks,
thank you
man.
so very much. You take care of yourself, and I'll see you on the next one.
You got it, Gavin.
All right, man.
Have a
Thanks.
good day.
Or you too.
Bye.